Hey, it is 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, and that means it's time for State of Real Estate. I'm John Carismo, and this show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. If you're interested in starting or enhancing your real estate career, visit our website, tampaschoolofrealestate.com. That's tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Better yet, give us a call. We'll walk you through everything you have to do. Phone number is 813-928-0106. Again, that's 813-928-0106. But now let's get right down to it. Before we get down to it for today's episode, let's talk about why we do this show, why we do this show at the Tampa School of Real Estate. So we have two shows we're doing currently. We have Ask the Instructor, that's Wednesdays at 12 noon, and we have State of Real Estate, and that's Fridays at 12 noon, both of them Eastern Standard Time for any of you guys out on the West Coast or anywhere around the world. We have people all over the world taking our courses that are interested in getting a Florida real estate license or just enhancing their real estate career. But the reason why we do the show today, State of Real Estate, is to help our students mastermind and grow their real estate business. Last week we had a really great episode. If you missed that, go back and watch that. That was on farming. It was called Farm to Survive. Everything you really need to know about real estate farming. There was so much good information on that. It's an essential if you're going to be in the real estate industry that you know about farming. So watch that episode. We're going to keep that up on there. Of all these people that are coming up to me and like, hey, that real estate farming show, you gave out a lot of information there. You know, you could charge some money for that, but we're not going to do that. This is there for our students. And even if you're not one of our students, anybody can watch these videos online. We're here to give back because we want to make the real estate industry a better place, an easier place where there's more knowledge, because the real estate industry is all about knowledge. But now let's get down to the nuts and bolts of today's show. We're talking about open houses. What they are, why you need to do them, and the mistakes you do not want to make. This is the same format we used last week's episode on real estate farming, and people loved it. So we're going to stick with that same format today, but now we're talking about open houses, which are really another essential key part of the real estate industry. And there's actually a really bit of a cool story behind open houses. And if you know me, I'm a fan of history. Even if it's not real estate related, I like history. It's one of the things I could get excited about. But now you pair that with the other thing I get really excited about, real estate history together, oof, game over. So we've got some great history on the story of open houses. This first little part about what an open house is, everybody knows what an open house is, or you should know. If you don't know already, it's holding a house open for people to come check it out. You probably have an idea about what that is already, and that the open house is exactly that, holding a house open. But now what we're talking about today is a little bit more in detail about what an open house is. Because to fully understand the concept of an open house, and before we even talk about why you need to do these, we need to talk about what it is exactly and where the origins of it came from, because this will really help us clue in. And anything with history, when you know history, it helps you fill in the path going forward. You can't know where you're heading without knowing where you came from. So that helps kind of gear your trajectory. So we're doing the same thing with open houses. Got a great little story about the history of an open house. So open houses actually got started back in the early 1900s. So over a century, open houses have been done to help get properties sold, although they weren't called open houses originally. So today we see that term open house all the time. We see signs for them. We hear people talk about open houses. If maybe you're interested in starting a career in real estate and you said, oh, open houses, I want to be able to do that. So maybe that's why you tuned in today. This concept of an open house, it was originally called open for inspection. So it wasn't even a thing. They didn't even call it an open house like we call them today, and like you need to do an open house, or are we going to hold an open house? It was called holding a house open for inspection. And there's actually a pretty neat ad, and I don't know if you guys can kind of see this here, but we're dating this back to, this was the early 1900s as well. This newspaper ad before, but you could see directly in it, it said open for inspection. And get this. When people did open houses back in the early 1900s, they weren't doing a couple hours on a Sunday. No. With the origins of open houses, it wasn't just a couple hours on a Sunday you're doing an open house. Get this. They were doing open houses every single day, because that's how you had to get a home sold back in the early 1900s. That's what you had to do. You had to have an open house. If people couldn't get into the house, there wasn't Zillow.com where you could go in there and flip through all these pictures and see the inside of the house and say, hey, this house looks really nice. Either they did a really great job taking pictures, or it's a really nice house, or maybe it's the two of them combined together. I want to buy this house. No, people had no idea. Maybe they got a flyer, some sort of circular, and this is before the day even of the commercial printing press where we could print so cheaply like we can do today. So even that technology wasn't as advanced as it was, and it was still expensive to do things like that. So these open houses, these properties were held open for inspection every day of the week until the property sold. And get this, they weren't just there like, oh, come stop by between the hours of 12 and 1. It wasn't just a 1-hour deal a day. They were there from 8 a.m. in the morning till 8 p.m. at night. That's exactly what this ad circular said right here. From 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. inspections daily. That means anybody could show up from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and come see this house, because that house was held open for 12 hours a day, every day of the week, until that property sold. And that's what you used to have to do to get a property sold in the early 19th century, or early 20th century, early 1900s. So why, I don't want to hear it about people belly aching today, like, oh, open house, I don't want to spend 4 hours on a Sunday, I want to watch football. And so you're lucky you're born in this day and age, because if this were back in the 1900s, you'd be there every single day. That was your job. Real estate wasn't the lifestyle. Real estate's kind of a lifestyle type of profession, but it wasn't the lifestyle that it is today back in the early 1900s. This was just another job. People would go to work, and when they're going to work, they're going to this open house. And get this, since we didn't have all these technical advances, people are only able to hold one open house at a time, or one listing at a time, I should say. The broker, the agent, and back in these early days, before 1919, there really weren't many real estate laws passed at all, not even licensing laws, so you could actually practice real estate without even having a real estate license. So there'd be all these people, some people that are legitimate business people, and other people that are just trying to make a quick buck and maybe scam some people, would be trying everything they can to get property sold. So people would come into these properties, and they really had to kind of kick the tires on it for real to make sure that there weren't somebody trying to scam them along the way. Now, another interesting thing as we go back and look into this history of the open houses back in our Wild Wild West era, and you get this, you're going to love this, the big features, they were showing off. Because that's why people want to come and see these houses. Primarily, these open houses were used on new properties, on new construction type of homes. Yes, new construction existed even in the early 1900s, on new construction homes. And they were showing off these amenities, these crazy things that are nothing like you've ever seen before. And guess what? Electricity. That's right, homes with electricity. This was the big thing to see. So we're going to get a little ahead of ourselves here. But what are you doing for your open house? Do you have electricity there? Of course you have electricity. I mean, some homes don't even have that. Some people are holding open houses on a house with the power turned off. Get your power turned on the house if you're going to hold it open. They even had electricity in the early 1900s. That was the big wow factor. People came to the house to see the light bulbs and like, oh my God, look, we could use this instead of using candlelight. Or this has changed our life. Give me this house. I need this house. This will save me so much money on candles because I can now use Thomas Edison's invention of electricity. That was a big feature. Some of the big features, which are still some of the stuff that you see today, is the larger kitchens, different kitchen layouts, and things like that. But that was the big one of the time in the early 1900s, electricity, because that was new to people. Not everybody had electricity in their house at the time. So that was, wow, this is huge. I need to go see this house. That was a reason for them to get in there. So they were holding these houses open every single day. Now, as we kind of move forward in history a little bit, we come along to, was this 1925? So 1925 is another landmark event that we had. In 1925, this was the first on record of an open house that was fully furnished, aka staged. So yes, you've heard of this term staging. That's another hot button topic that comes up quite a bit when you talk to somebody about real estate, is property staging. And this was the first, so this isn't anything new. Staging isn't new. Staging goes back to 1925, almost 100 years ago. About 90 years ago that we go back and we had the first staged type of home. That's why you guys need to know your history. This stuff isn't new. This isn't anything revolutionary. If you think you're changing the game because you have a staged home and all of a sudden that's going to be your magic formula, staging homes, that's not your magic formula. That was a magic formula 90 years ago, almost 100 years ago. So you really have to kind of understand all this that we came from to know how it is that we're going to be moving forward. Because staging, that alone isn't going to do it. Yes, you might stage it nicer than they did in 1925, but that's when they first started staging properties for sale. So that's not anything new. Over 90 years old. So next, we have our 1930s. Now, if you've studied other histories, you know this is kind of like our Depression era times and things like that. But the 1930s, this is actually when the first trend started to rise of brokers employing multiple agents. Because in the 1930s, we had our real estate licensing laws, so you had to go through a licensing process to have a real estate license to be qualified to earn compensation for selling properties on behalf of others. So you need to have a license to do that. And these brokers, and they would then go and employ more agents, because if you're just one broker, especially in this day and age before we had the technology where you could have multiple listings, you just had the single listing, and you need to be there every single day, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., to get that property sold. So if you're just one broker, you can only have one property at that one time. So 1930s, this is our first concept of having multiple agents. And now if you're a broker tuning into this show and you don't have multiple agents, or you're not doing everything you can to increase the agents at your office, you're back like in the 1920s. Why are you living in the 1920s with no agents in your office? I'm not meaning to offend anybody, but this is a real question you have to ask yourself. That's what they did in the 1920s, right when real estate licensing law was first originally passed. This is where brokers would just do it all themselves. Then in the 1930s, they came to the realization, you started to have the trend arise of employing more agents, because now they could hold multiple properties open, multiple houses that they could hold open. So again, knowing this history kind of makes you look at the things that they've done this before. Does it still make sense today? Most of the stuff does make sense today. So as we progress further even more, we have our 1930s and 1940s. So as we get into the 1940s, this is going to be where agents and brokers started using these open houses as marketing tools. So now this is something where a lot of people miss the boat on. A lot of people don't really catch on to this, that you're doing an open house more so. And we're going to be talking about this in the next segment on why you need to be doing open houses. But this is a big thing here, that this was the first time people were starting to use this as a marketing tool. So people are figuring stuff out as we go along. We figure out that you need to hold the houses open so they can see the new things, such as electricity, so the house will get sold. Because who would want to buy a new house when their house is perfectly fine? Oh, because the new house has light bulbs, and that'll save them money on their candle budget. They'll have a nice little horse and buggy carport, and a buggy port, I guess we would call it, so they could keep their buggy out of the elements. All these things that were brand new for the time, and they need to be held open so people could see that. And even that holds true in this day and age. There's new design trends and things that you can't quite see. You could do a great job of getting great pictures of a property, but ultimately people may still want to see this in person. I mean, there's really hardly anybody, especially people that are buying this as their principal residence. Maybe investors will buy a property sight unseen without ever visiting the property, but if you're buying this as your home to live in, you're probably going to want to go in there a couple of times, 10, 12 times, go check out the property and make sure this is really what you want to invest in, what you really want as your home, as your shelter to call your own for the next 30 years or however long it is that you decide to own the property for. The realtor statistic of 5 to 7 years that they'll probably own this for. So 1940s, this is when we first start having agents branding themselves through these open houses. That they're running these open houses not only to try to get the house sold, but hey, they're trying to get their name out there a little bit. So they're trying to get their name out there. The broker's trying to get their name out there, so maybe they get more agents working for them, or they can just get no business altogether. But this idea of open houses, this is part of the core foundation of an open house. This goes back to the 1940s, sometimes as early as the 1930s. It was the 40s or so when this was first starting to be noticed as a trend. But this is where people started using this as a marketing tool, a branding tool, not just to get the house sold, but also to build their brand themselves. So people start to remember them. If you're wondering about building your brand and why that's important, go back to last week's episode of State of Real Estate. You can find that on our Success Center. That's tampaschoolofrealestate.com/success. You can see last week's episode. You can also see it on Facebook and YouTube. You can navigate through there and find it. It was a state of real estate on farming. But in that episode, I talked about 7 to 9 times that you need to be in front of somebody in order for them to make recognition. So that's what they started realizing in the 1940s. Very primitive in the advertising compared to what we have today, but they knew that you had to get some repetition in front of people, so they end up calling you and not somebody else when they think about selling a house or buying a house themselves. So we first see that in the 1940s. Our next part of our story, we get into the 1950s. So we're getting into the 1950s now. We're getting a little bit closer to modern day and age. I mean, it's still not very modern today's standards, but we're starting to get closer to this modern day type of time that we live in now. A lot of these trends started off after World War II. So World War II ended about sometime in the 40s. I don't know the exact date, and even that's debated, but that's when World War II ended. And now what do we have happening in the U.S.? This was a huge part that shaped our country the way it is today, what was going on after World War II. The people coming back from the war, the baby boomers coming back from the war, they wanted to have kids, but what do they need when they have kids? This was the whole birth of the suburbs. The suburbs that exist today started after World War II in the 1950s. This is where we see the development of this. Before this, people would live in the cities, and they'd live in more crowded areas, maybe a little bit outside the city in a little bit larger place, but people wanted to be where the action was. They wanted to be close to everything. They wanted to be close to businesses, to parks, to all these things, and they wanted to be where everything was, and that was the city, the urban type of environment. Then the suburbs kind of came in after people realized that, hey, this urban environment isn't the best place to raise our children, so that's where they started moving out into the suburbs. And now in these more suburban areas, you can kind of see how this makes sense to hold these houses open. Again, we have a new thing that's happening here. We went from first starting to hold open houses so we could show off the electricity in the house, to now maybe we have suburbs. We have these smaller types of environments, these little pockets of neighborhoods where we'd have these larger homes, but they're very knitted types of areas where we have people that know their neighbors rather than just the random people that live in the same building as them. So it was an entirely different environment. And when we come back from this next break, we'll talk a little bit more about how that changed open houses, because like I said, this shapes the trends that we're seeing today, and there was a big change that started happening with open houses in the 1950s that we still see today. So stay with us. I'm John Crismo, and you're watching State of Real Estate.
When you look back on your real estate career, you'll remember the moment you decided to begin this journey. The moment when you finally decided it was time for change. The moment when you decided it was time to take charge. The moment that changed the direction of your life forever. Now is that moment.
Hey, I'm John Crismo, and I'm here to tell you today about Ask the Instructor. This is every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm going to be live answering your questions, so tune in. You can get on Facebook, on facebook.com/Tampa School, youtube.com/Tampa School, or also on our Success Center, tampaschoolofrealestate.com/success. You'll find those links in the description for this video. Make sure you tune in every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I'm John Crismo, and I look forward to answering your questions.
After the show, be sure to visit tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Again, that's tampaschoolofrealestate.com, where you'll find all the information you need to start your career in real estate. Also, be sure to check out our Success Center, where you'll find helpful tips for building a successful real estate career.
Hey, if you like the show today, be sure to hit like and subscribe and post your comments. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, welcome back to State of Real Estate. I'm John Crismo, and this show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. If you're interested in starting or enhancing your real estate career, visit tampaschoolofrealestate.com. That's tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Or you can give us a call on the phone, and we'll walk you through everything you have to do. Phone number is 813-928-0106. That's 813-928-0106. Thanks for you guys tuning in today. We have a really great episode. We're talking about open houses. Before we went on break, we were talking about kind of the history and the evolution of the open house. We went back to the early 1900s, where we started holding homes open for inspection so people could see these homes because there's something new to see on the inside. Before then, maybe there's not really much that's different. different inside the house. But now we had something revolutionary that was being built within new houses, and that was electricity. So that was really the origins we have of this open for inspection or open house. And then as we go through the times, in the 1940s, another big landmark, this is where people start using the open house as a branding tool to help build their business. When we start talking about why you need to be doing open houses, that's going to be such a crucial key element that you need to pay attention to. And then 1950s, like I said, the 1950s, not only in the open house space, but in so many trends that exist today. The reason why we're in the state and the environment it is that we're in arose a lot. This is where a lot of this kind of stemmed from, of the end of World War II, this baby boomer generation and everything that happened from with subsequent to that. So 1950s, big time for open houses. Why? Because we're finally calling them open houses. This is where the term now finally comes about in the 1950s. So up until the 1950s, it was just called being open for inspection. So being open for inspection, that term ended. It's now being called open houses in the 1950s. Now, there's a big change. Before we went on break, I talked about how we went from the suburbs or from the urban areas to our suburbs. So we lived on top of each other, now being more spread out. So again, something new and another reason to hold open houses so people could see what it's like, because this is totally different. We went from people having candles to having electricity. Now we're going from living in an urban environment to a more suburban type of environment. We're now calling them open houses as well. And if you know anything about the economy and how that looked after the World War II, everybody coming home and people spending money, the economy was great at this time. This whole kind of birth of the baby boomer type of area here, this was where houses sold a lot quicker. They didn't need to be held open for weeks at a time. You didn't need to be there from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. weeks at a time until that house finally sold. No, people demanded these houses. They couldn't keep up with building these suburban neighborhoods. So yes, people still needed to see them, but you didn't need to. Now the tables have kind of turned where it's like, okay, you want to see the house, I have it available for you to see at this time. You could come check it out at this time. It's not where you had to be there at the house constantly, nonstop. So in the event that somebody shows up, that you're there and ready to show them the property and try to get them to buy. No, the demand had rose, and so since this demand went up, you couldn't keep people away. People just wanted these houses. Yeah, they wanted to check it out to make sure they're spending good money, but it's a lot easier to sell the houses from this 1950 era moving onward. So that's where we have the term of the open house arises. Now, 1952, this is going to tie in a lot to this why we need to do open houses, which we're going to talk about next year. 1952, so they just started calling them open houses. We have this whole suburban type of concept. There's a Dallas realtor. He went by the name of Howdy Howard. Yes, that's right, Howie Howard. So that's a brand that he was able to market, and this guy, he was ahead of his time. He knew what he was doing. He was actually a new home builder as well, so he had these new homes that he built out in Dallas, Texas. And you know, in Dallas, Texas, and Texas in general, they do everything bigger in Texas. So Howdy Howard took this concept. It makes me smile every time I say that name, Howdy Howard. That's something that sticks in your head. You're probably not going to be thinking all day, Howdy Howard. Get yourself a little bracelet. What would Howdy Howard do when you're thinking about open houses? So with open house, how he changed the game with open houses. And get this, he had 30,000 people. 30,000 people. To today's standards, that's mind-blowing that you had that many people come to an open house. In 1952, Howdy Howard changed the open house game. He changed this completely. He had 30,000 people come through his open house. And that's just a ridiculous number, even in 1952, even in today, 30,000 people. So how did he do it? How did he get so many people turned out to come look at his new home development, good old Howdy Howard? Well, what he did, and this is the first time that there's documented records of this, he offered soft drinks, specifically Dr. Pepper. And this was such a big, elaborate event that he made this into, that he actually got Dr. Pepper to sponsor his open house. The Dr. Pepper employees were there handing out free Dr. Pepper for him. So he didn't even have to pay for these soft drinks. So all of you guys that get all hung up on the fact that, Joe, you got to have this nice elaborate brunch and everything like that, when they came up with this idea, the realtor wasn't even paying for the drinks. He used his marketing specialization. Good old Howdy Howard used his marketing specialization to understand if he got enough attention for this open house. He got enough attention, people would want to be part of it. Dr. Pepper wanted to be a part of it because they're like, oh, I see what you're doing. I see the advertisements that you're running. Howdy Howard, the way he advertised this property, and this, if you're thinking about you're doing some sort of advertising, it's all pretty much all been done before. Howdy Howard back in 1952, he was running TV ads, he was running radio ads, he was running newspaper ads. He even had an aerial banner, so the little planes that pulled the little banners behind it. Howdy Howard had those for, they called them his holiday homes. Howdy Howard's holiday homes. That's a tongue twister for you right there. Try to say that a few times fast. So Howdy Howard had this aerial banner. He had radio. He had TV. That's the frequency we're talking about in the farming. He was hitting these people not just 7 to 9 times. These people probably couldn't get away from Howdy Howard's advertisements about his homes and his free soft drinks. But it wasn't really the free soft drinks that was drawing these people in. He was actually giving away a free car. And this wasn't like some sort of contest or anything like that, because Howdy Howard, he can't just give away free car. Maybe he was well off enough just to give out cars and still be all done. But see, he wasn't doing this as a charitable endeavor. He was doing this to help sell his homes, because if you bought one of Howdy Howard's holiday homes, got it. If you bought one of Howdy Howard's holiday homes, he would give a free Cadillac, a free brand new Cadillac. You'd have groceries in the kitchen. Yes, they include groceries in the kitchen and a Cadillac in the driveway. And plus the free soft drinks. So you can see it wasn't really the free soft drinks that made people want to come to this open house. So don't think your open house that having your free food is going to be something that draws people in. Yeah, you'll get some freeloaders that'll come in there that'll want something, some sort of lunch, but you got to do more beyond that. It's the house that you want people to come see, not the refreshments that are in there. That's where you get the real people, the real potential leads, the potential buyers. So that's what you need to do there. Howdy Howard knew that. Maybe he had some people that wanted a Cadillac, but I tell you what, that house probably cost quite a bit more than that Cadillac cost, even in 1950s terms. So he probably still made a pretty good chunk of change by giving out this free Cadillac. And he had such a crazy promotion. Dr. Pepper showed up and was like, hey, let's give out free soft drinks. So the reason why refreshments are given out at open houses today was good old Howdy Howard back in 1952, but it wasn't even his idea. It was Dr. Pepper coming to him, or maybe he went to Dr. Pepper. Maybe it was his idea. Howdy Howard was a smart guy from what it seems, but it wasn't him spending the money. Yeah, he was spending the money for the Cadillacs, but only if the house is sold. So 30,000 people he got from this promotion. I don't think to this date that that's ever been topped, getting more than 30,000 people through an open house, because that's just a ridiculous number to even try to comprehend for the amount of people coming through. And I don't have the exact how this was broken down, but I'm sure it was over a couple of days or probably even a couple of weeks. Who knows? It could have just been on one Sunday. After we had 1950s and good old Howdy Howard, who really kind of just changed the game for open houses, we really see kind of the shaping of the trend that we have today. You see these crazy marketing gimmicks and schemes and things that people do to try to get people to come to these open houses. So that's what the open house is. So what do we take away from this? Because yeah, it's a great story, it's a fun story, but now what do we take away from this history of the open house so that we could use it today? So number one, going back to the origin of the beginning of the open house, number one thing you need to know for open houses is people are going to an open house, or the reason they should be going to the open house is to see some feature or some attribute of the house. So when this ties into your marketing, don't make it about the refreshments. Yes, it's okay to mention that there's refreshments there. Maybe that'll get you a couple extra people, or maybe it'll get people a little bit more motivated. But your key selling point, because you're trying to sell this house, or you're trying to sell a house. We'll talk about that in a second. That's that whole branding aspect. But you're trying to get a house sold. So you want to sell the house in your advertisements and your marketing for this open house. You need to really sell a feature of the house. And when we first started the Open for Inspection, the original open house, it was because the houses had electricity. And that was brand new. That was mind-blowing for people to have electricity in their house. So that's where it started. So that's lesson number one. You need to sell the property. There needs to be a feature about the property, and maybe this is where you get a little bit more creative about it. Maybe it's a pool that they have to see, or a kitchen they have to see, or a layout that they have to see, or the perfect type of home, something that piques somebody's interest, but make it about the house. Don't make it about other things that you have there. Those other things are good to help boost the attendance of this open house, like the free Cadillac giveaway, that got people's attention, but ultimately the people getting those free Cadillacs and what mattered to Howdy Howard in that was the people that were actually buying the house. So the houses still needed to be good. If it was a piece of crap house and they got a Cadillac for it, they would probably have sold a lot less houses. So the house still needs to be something that is worth selling. If it's a house that's run down or doesn't have electricity to it, these probably aren't your best houses to do open houses at. I mean, yeah, you could still do them. They might still result in a sale of the property. We'll talk about how often that actually happens in a second. But that's another lesson that you need to take away from this. And the key thing, this is really the main reason it's going to segue into our next segment, talking about why you need to do open houses. And this goes back to the 1940s. So this isn't new. I'm not talking about some radical idea here. It's stuff you've probably heard before if you're in the real estate industry, but sometimes this stuff just needs to be banged into your head and reiterated so you remember this stuff. I look at redundant stuff all the time that I already know about real estate, that I know about business, that I know about marketing. But the reason why I revisit these things is to help ingrain that. I don't want to just look at something once and think about something once. If I'm going to master something, I need to revisit it over and over and over again. So we're talking about a lot of great things about open houses next. And this is why you need to do open houses. So stay with us. We're going to go on another short break. This is State of Real Estate.
Are you considering getting your real estate license via one of our classroom courses? At the Tampa School of Real Estate, our courses have been designed to prepare you for the Florida Real Estate Commission licensing exam, as well as teach you about the fundamental aspects of the real estate business. In this class, you'll learn about appraising property values, real estate contracts, the mortgage industry, and much more. We offer multiple class formats and several locations to make getting your real estate license easy. You can complete the course in as little as 2 weeks in one of our day classes. Or if you have a busier schedule, you might prefer our evening classes. All of our classes include the course textbook as well as other supplemental materials. At the Tampa School of Real Estate, all of our instructors undergo a rigorous training program and have real-world real estate experience in order to best prepare you for the class and state exam. We are so confident we have the most comprehensive licensing courses in Florida. We back all of our students with our exclusive 1-year retake guarantee. Our class sizes are limited and tend to fill up quickly, so reserve your seat today with a $49 deposit that will apply towards your course tuition. Registration is easy and just takes a few minutes on our website, tampaschoolofrealestate.com. You can also stop by our administration building or give us a call at 813-928-0106. Our advisors are standing by to answer any questions you have about obtaining your Florida real estate license and starting your exciting new career in real estate.
Hey, if you liked the show today, be sure to hit like and subscribe and post your comments. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, welcome back to State of Real Estate. I'm John Charismo, and this show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. If you're interested in starting or enhancing your career in real estate, visit our website, tampaschoolofrealestate.com. That's tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Or give us a call. We'll walk you through everything you have to do. Phone number is 813-928-0106. That's 813-928-0106. So today's episode, State of Real Estate. We do this show every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time to help you mastermind and grow your real estate business. Where we do everything we can for our students. There's no other school that does more for their students, and we have the show every single week to prove it. We're here to help you mastermind and grow your business. This week, we're talking about open houses. So we already talked about the history of the open house, but now let's talk about why you need to be doing open houses. So there's a couple reasons why. First reason we're going to talk about is to get the house sold. No, yes, that makes sense. The reason why we hold these houses open, going back to the very beginning, is to try to sell the house. That's reason number one that we want to get this, that we want to do these open houses, to get this house sold. But now, how often can we expect that? Because you don't want to just walk into anything with blinders on. Remember, real estate is a knowledge game. The more you learn, the more you can earn, not to steal that cheesy catchphrase, wherever that came from. But in real estate, the more you understand about the real estate industry, the more you can grow your income and grow your real estate business. So it's very important to understand the numbers behind all of this and knowing what you're doing and how this is going to fit in with your plan. So we have another National Association of Realtors statistic, another NAR statistic. National Association of Realtors, this is the organization that is almost like a union, I guess. That's the easiest way I usually explain to people that don't know what the Association of Realtors are. But they keep all kinds of tabs on stuff. A lot of those history and whatnot I got from the Association of Realtors about the whole history of open houses and whatnot. So they have a statistic. And the National Association of Realtors says that only 1% of homes are going to sell as a result of an open house. So 1% of homes are going to sell as a result of an open house. So you hold an open house, you have to hold really 100 open houses to get one home sale. Now we're going to talk about some other things with these open houses, but it's very important that you do the open houses right, and maybe you could even cut that number down. And these average numbers, I say this all the time, whenever you're dealing with an average statistic like this, where we're talking about 1% of homes, sometimes that's maybe 0.5%, and other times that might be 2%, and that's what makes this average of the 1% is these differing numbers. It's not always 1%. It's not going to be where you hold 99 open houses and the next open house like that. It's magic that you sell the house. No, that's not how it works. You might get lucky and you might hold your first open house and end up getting a deal off of it, end up getting a contract off the first time you're holding an open house. Don't expect that because the statistic says you have to do this 100 times to get one sale. So now we're talking about work. And maybe people interested in a career in real estate, or maybe people in real estate already, they're like, oh, work, I don't want to do work. But let's talk about how this work could pay off itself. So for just the primary reason of holding an open house, let's say that we have an open house that we're going to do, and we're going to do 100 open houses to meet the statistics. So let's say we're going to do 100 open houses, but we can't just do a show up for 5 minutes and call it a day. No one will show up, and it's just going to be a complete waste of time. So we have 100 open houses that we're going to hold, and you're probably going to be there, let's say, for 4 hours. Maybe you could do a little bit longer if you're willing to, but I would say do at least 4 hours for an open house. So 100 times 4, that's 400 hours we'll have to spend on an open house. So 400 hours we'll have to spend for an open house. Now let's talk about what the money's going to look like, what the payoff's going to look like, because statistics say that once we hold these 100 open houses, we go these 400 hours, we should have a sale. So let's say the property we're holding open is $500,000. So let's say we have a $500,000 property. We're going to multiply that. Let's say you're charging a 6% commission rate. And yes, we'll go ahead and calculate based off this 6% commission, because if you're holding the house open, it's probably your listing. So not only are you going to get the 3% from the seller, but also the 3% from the buyer. You get both sides. You double end the transaction. So that's probably what's going to happen as well for the open house. So all the more reason to do these open houses. So when we do 500,000 times 6%, we end up with $30,000. So $30,000, that's a pretty decent payoff for the sole purpose of alone of just doing open houses, because people look at this and they say, oh, less than 1% of houses. They like to use that as an excuse to their sellers why they don't want to hold open houses. Oh, look, you don't want me doing open houses. That's just a waste of my time and yours, and you'll have these strangers in your house and burglars, and you don't even want to do this because only 1% of the houses sell as a result of an open house. So let's not waste our time. That's the excuse that a lot of people like to use, a lot of agents they'd like to use, quote-unquote professionals. Yes, it is a true statistic, and yes, maybe they make some valid points, but I don't care about those points. You have a 1% chance that that house is going to sell. And if we're talking about a $30,000 commission, there's people every day that buy lottery tickets, that buy scratch-offs, that bank a lot more money, and the payoff isn't even this great. So that $30,000, now let's break it down into an hourly number, because people like to think about things as an hourly number. So let's take these $30,000, and yes, there'll be some broker split and things like that, but let's just base it off this $30,000 to keep things simple. So we'll do our $30,000, and let's divide this by our 400 hours we'd have to work. You want to know how much you're making? If you've done the math already, you know it's $75 an hour. $75 an hour. There's not many people that make $75 an hour here in the United States. Yes, there's people that do make more than that, but just holding open houses, being there hanging out at a house, talking to people, and being able to make $75 an hour doing it. Now, this money isn't guaranteed. You have to make sure that you're doing this right and you're being smart about it to hopefully get that $75. But that's a pretty good chunk of change. Now, you might be saying, John, $500,000, that's way out of the price range in my market. Let's say we're dealing with a $250,000 house. Okay, so let's do a $250,000 house. So $250,000 house, let's divide that now by 400 hours. We divide that out. We had to calculate the commission first, $250,000 times 6% commission. So that's $15,000 in total commission, so still a pretty good payday. And we'll divide that now by our 400 hours. And we'll get $37.50 an hour. So $37.50 an hour, that's still, yeah, it's not $75 an hour, but that's still a pretty good rate of pay. There's people out there protesting in the streets to make $15 an hour. They're out there fighting for 15, protesting in the streets. All you got to do is get your real estate license, hold an open house, and we just did the math where you could be making $37 an hour. Yeah, maybe you take your broker split into that account. Now maybe it's $30 an hour, but still, that's huge. And people are so hesitant to hold open houses. I don't know why. They could do some simple math like this. Work 400 hours and get $15,000. That's not bad. You double that up, and we'll talk about the other reasons to do open houses and how to do this smart to help grow this. Because a lot of people look at this, and this is the reason why there's such a big issue with this. People that are in real estate, they're more the entrepreneurial type of mindset. They don't maybe think so much in terms of hourly pay. They're thinking, oh, I don't want to make $15,000. I want to be a millionaire. And that's perfectly fine. I appreciate the aspirations. The sky is the limit in real estate, and you could definitely accomplish that, but you have to factor in these nuts and bolts that fit into this. Yes, you should be doing open houses. Yes, even though it only may get you a $15,000 commission. Well, how does that factor into the $1 million that they're interested in making, or even the $100,000 that they're interested in making? That's only $15,000, and they're going to have to work 8 hours every weekend on Saturdays and Sundays in order to make this happen. But now that's just the primary reason. You might get lucky and sell more houses than that. Chances are you'll probably start getting good at holding these open houses if you're doing them every single weekend. You want to make sure you're not wasting your time. You'll probably get a lot better, and you'll probably be able to beat the National Association of Realtors statistic. The reason why that statistic is the way it is with the 1% of homes selling is because you have people that they're lazy, that are doing these open houses, that aren't promoting them, that aren't marketing them, that aren't paying any attention to the buyers walking through, that aren't being a true sales professional. And that's what you have to do when you're doing these open houses. So that's the reason number one of why to do open houses is because you get a property sale and you can make some pretty good money doing it, holding these open houses. Don't think of this as that you're wasting your Saturday. Think of this that you're sitting there to make $30 an hour, to make $50, to make potentially $75 an hour. It depends on how much commission you're charging and what the price of the home is. But I mean, you could even be making more than that. You could be making $100 an hour by sitting there holding an open house. If you put an ad on Craigslist, $100 an hour to sit in a house and talk to people that walk in, your phone will blow up. You'll get calls, emails, text messages from all kinds of people lining up to do that. So seize the opportunity that's at hand. So that's reason number one. But now we're going to sweeten the deal. We're going to make this a lot better because open houses, we're talking about why you need to do open houses, and maybe that $15,000 or $30,000 or whatever it is isn't compelling enough. So let's talk about how to make your open house better to make more money off of this. And now we're going back to so this was the logic in the early 1900s when we first started holding open houses. They're like, okay, if we work here for 400 hours, then we can make $75 an hour. Or it'd be a lot less than that because the dollar was worth more back then, and it wouldn't be that same $7. It'd be $7 an hour, and they'd be the richest man in their neighborhood or the richest woman in their neighborhood at the time if they were making that amount of money. So now we have to fast forward to the 1940s, this concept of using the open house as a branding tool. If you're interested in learning about branding, go back, watch last week's State of Real Estate where we talked about real estate farming. This is part of your farming strategy. If you could get a house in your farm area, you hit the lottery right there because you now have inventory to market. You have inventory to market, and guess what? If you're watching this and say, okay, yeah, this is all well and good, but I don't have any listings yet. Maybe you're new to real estate and you haven't got a listing yet. Talk to somebody who has a listing. Talk to your broker. Does your broker have listings? Does somebody in your office have listings? Because they probably don't want to hold an open house because they probably already have enough business where they don't need to be doing these open houses to brand and market themselves. Maybe they are, and that's great. But have you go in there and work with them. Come to some sort of agreement. You got to be creative about these things. Don't just expect things to be handed to you. You have to go out there and get them. So if you don't have a listing yet and you're not able to get out there and get a listing, get out there and get somebody else's listing. Say, hey, I want to work with you. I want to hold open houses for this, and so on and so forth. Believe me, you'll find realtors, brokers that are more than willing to do that. So that's definitely a good strategy to employ if you don't have any listings yet. But better yet, it's your listing. You can now especially use this as a marketing platform, as your inventory to push out to people, hey, look, I've got this phenomenal house that you have to see. Remember, we need to sell the house. It's got a fabulous kitchen. It was just updated. Stainless steel appliances, granite countertops, recessed lighting, hardwood floors, all these things that you could sell about the property. And you got to be creative with these things. You have to make it sound. Notice how I threw in all these adjectives describing the property where I'm saying it's fabulous and it's amazing and it's a must-see. You see this all the time in real estate because you have to sell the property because ultimately you want to try to get the house sold. And in number one, try to get the house sold. Number two, and this is still, even though it's number two, you have to do it. Do not do an open house without doing this. Use this as a branding platform. If you're not using the open house as a branding platform, you're going back to the days before the 1940s, back in the recessionary times, before the internet even existed. So you wouldn't say, no, I'm not going to use the internet in my real estate business because I don't like it. No, you have to use the internet. You need to use these tools that are available to you, and you need to use your open house as a branding platform to help expand your brand and market this out to people. So you need to be able to take this open house and use this to generate new business. Because now let's think about and if we break this down, again, understanding these concepts and understanding these ideas are going to help us out here. If we think about the people that are coming in the open house. If we did a great job advertising our open house and saying it's a must-see and so on and so forth, maybe you didn't even do that and you just have somebody that's wandering in. Maybe they saw the open house sign in the front yard, they drove by and like, oh, look, let's check out this house. We have nothing better to do today. Why would they waste their time going into a house? Because they probably are interested, if not buying a house, maybe selling their house. So number one, they probably want to buy a house. And if they don't want to buy a house, maybe they're thinking about selling their house and they want to see what competition's in the neighborhood. You know what that sounds like to a realtor? That sounds like two potential deals. You have two leads walking in the door right there. Yeah, maybe they're not going to buy that house, especially if they're thinking about selling their house. They're probably not going to move down the street. There's people that do that, but they're probably not going to do that. So you have these people walking in the house. Don't just write them off as like, oh, they're just looky-loos. They're not here to buy anything. They're just in here to eat my free sandwiches and drink my Dr. Peppers. Howdy Howard wasn't worried about people drinking his Dr. Peppers. He didn't even pay for the Dr. Peppers. He had Dr. Pepper out there handing out Dr. Peppers to his people that he had coming in there. So don't be negative. And the whole attitude stuff, we could talk a whole nother episode about attitude. But that's really the key thing is that you have to look at these people as potential business. And maybe they're not looking to buy. Maybe they're not looking to sell. Maybe they are just a nosy neighbor. But you know what's great about nosy neighbors? Is they like to talk. They like to gossip. They like to talk with other people. That's probably why they're going in there to see what this house really looks like on the inside. And guess what? If you can make friends with them, and that's what this real estate business is all about. Yes, you are a salesperson, but ultimately you're making friends with people. Because when you're a friend with somebody, especially with somebody who's a leader in their neighborhood, the people that go out and gossip with all the other neighbors and so on and so forth, these are people that people will look to for advice. Hey, I'm thinking about selling my home. Do you know anybody? Oh yeah, you got to do the guy that's holding this open house. He's so professional. She's so professional. They know what they're doing. This is the only person you would use. If you don't use them, I'm going to be offended. And this is just another person saying that to you. So this is a great way to build a referral business. So even if they are just the looky-loos, just the people showing up to eat your free snacks and everything, make friends with them. I mean, what good is that going to do you by trying to kick these people out of your house by being nasty to them? That's not going to do you anything. That's just going to make you feel nasty about yourself if you're being nasty to other people. These are people that are coming in here. And yeah, maybe they're a freeloader. Maybe they're just there to kind of be nosy and look what's going on. But that's a person. This is a person, and this person is an extroverted person, and it's good to be friends with these types of people and build your network, build your sphere of influence, And that same person, they're probably going to sell their house someday as well. So you want to become a friend and build rapport with every single person that comes into this open house. So that's the second reason really why you need to be doing open houses. Number one, to get the house sold. Number two, to build your brand. So we're going to take one more short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the mistakes you do not want to make. So if you've been enjoying this episode so far, do not tune out, because we need to talk about these mistakes, because these are big roadblocks that a lot of people hit when they're talking about holding open houses. Stay with us. I'm John Cursmo, and you're watching State of Real Estate.
Is your real estate license expiring soon? In the state of Florida, all real estate licenses expire on either March 31st or September 30th. If this is your first license renewal, you must complete the Florida Real Estate Commission required post-licensing course. This course must be completed by the expiration date on your license. There is no grace period, and failure to complete this education requirement will result in your real estate license becoming null and void. And if your license becomes null and void, it cannot be renewed, and you must re-qualify for licensure all over again. Now, the good news is this course can actually help jumpstart your real estate business. You'll learn about many useful real-world topics such as listing presentations, effective farming, converting for sale by owners to listings, social media, and much more. We're so confident we have the most comprehensive post-licensing course in Florida. We back all of our students with our exclusive 1-year retake guarantee. Our class sizes are limited and tend to fill up quickly, so reserve your seat today with a $49 deposit that will apply towards your course tuition. Registration is easy and just takes a few minutes on our website, tampaschoolofrealestate.com. You can also stop by our administration building or give us a call at 813-928-0106. Our advisors are standing by to answer any questions you have about renewing your Florida real estate license and accelerating your real estate business.
Hey, if you like the show today, be sure to hit like and subscribe and post your comments. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, welcome back to State of Real Estate. I'm John Cursmo. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. We do this show every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time because no other school does more for their students than we do. Find out more at tampaschoolofrealestate.com. That's tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Or give us a call, 813-928-0106. That's 813-928-0106. So today's episode about masterminding and growing your business. That's what we're here to do today. We're talking about how to mastermind, how to grow your business, talking about different aspects. Last week we talked about real estate farming. This week we're talking about open houses. We talked about the history, so we understood how this progression of the open house kind of occurred over time. We talked about why you need to be doing open houses, the money that's behind this that you could be potentially making from doing these open houses, and the brand exposure you could be getting. The two key things you need to focus on: selling the house, number one; getting brand exposure, number two. And really, they could be in the reverse order. Maybe you're just doing these open houses to get brand exposure. I mean, that's great as well. If that's your only thing, if you don't care about selling the house, but you just care about getting in front of people, that alone is a reason to do open houses. But now we're here to wrap up the show, the things you do not want to do, the mistakes you do not want to make when we're talking about an open house. What type of mistakes is it? And when I come up with these mistakes, this isn't stuff that I'm just thinking about, that's a bad thing to do. This is stuff that I see on a daily basis. I work with a lot of new agents, helping them grow and develop their business, and I see these mistakes every single day, and these are things you do not want to make. So number one, not promoting your open house. So let's talk about this. And this may everybody says, well, yeah, of course I have to promote my open house, but it should be not promoting your open house enough. Not promoting your open house enough. Now, why is this a problem? We need to get exposure. How do you think Howdy Howard got 32,000 people to his open house? Yeah, he could have said to his friends and family, hey, I'm going to give away a Cadillac to everybody that sells the house. Oh, great. How are they going to find out about that? Oh, well, they'll just see the Cadillac when they buy the house. No, Howdy Howard said, hey, everybody come see my open house and get your free Cadillac if you buy a house. Get some free Dr. Pepper as well. We're going to stock every new house with groceries and a Cadillac. And he was running TV ads, he was running newspaper ads, he was running radio ads, he had banners in the sky, the little aerial banners that are going by, come see Howdy Howard's Holiday Homes, get yourself a free Cadillac. That's what he was doing to get all these people through his open house. So you have to think of, remember the bracelet, what would Howdy Howard do? So what would Howdy Howard do to market his open house? He would do everything to market his open house, and you should do the same thing as well. Now, not everybody really has the budget to run TV ads, but we live in a day and age where the technology is available to do stuff that wasn't possible for Howdy Howard to do. You could come to people live like I'm doing right here. You don't need a fancy studio like we have. You could just whip out your phone, you get on selfie mode and be like, hey, I'm John Chrismo. I'm here holding an open house at 123 Main Street. You guys got to see this house. It's a crazy, great deal. There's these fantastic floors, these fantastic cabinets. Come see us, and we're giving away a gift card, or we're doing a raffle, or we're doing something. Something like that to get out to people and get the message out. You want to brand yourself, but not just use the little selfie video, and maybe you pay to promote that as well, but put out signs in the road, because people most likely to come to the open house are the people that are in the area. Yeah, people could see your video. Maybe they're in China, and you're somehow connected to this person in China through your social networks, and maybe they are interested in buying property in the U.S. somewhere, but they're not going to get on a flight today, or maybe they'll get on the flight today. If you have a really great video, maybe they'll do that, but they're probably not going to get on a flight right away based on your little selfie video you made about the open house. It's a great thing to do, but you got to think in terms of the people that are around you, and you don't want to ignore them. Put out the signs, and you have to check your local ordinances on this, because there are regulations about how many signs it is that you can put out, but put out as many signs as you can. And this isn't the real estate instructor to be telling you this here, but maybe it's worth that. I'm not telling you to do anything illegal. Let me disclaimer, no, nothing illegal here, but maybe these fines are like $50 or something like that, and maybe it's worth it to put out these signs. That's not me telling you that. It's just me observing all of these little like bandit signs that I know are illegal, that are in all these little medians and everywhere and everything like that. This gets littered everywhere out there, so there's ways to do this, and maybe the $50 fine is worth the extra signs that you put out. Maybe that $30,000 commission is worth the $50 fine. So I don't know. I'm not telling you to do anything illegal. Check your laws and your rules about that. Make sure that you're putting out the adequate amount of signs. You're not going to go to jail for this, or at least I don't think you're going to go to jail for this. If you do, you didn't hear that from me. Anyway, so try to promote your open house in every way you can. You do your selfie videos, you get your signs out, get some balloons, invest yourself in a little helium tank, go rent one, get some balloons. What's it going to cost you? A couple bucks to do this stuff here? These open houses, it's a lot of the sweat equity. This is a lot of the, especially here in Florida, the sweat equity. You're putting in the work and the time because you don't have money to spend for somebody else to put in their work and their time. So if you can spend the money, have somebody else put out the signs for you. But if you're trying to bootstrap it and keep your expenses low, get out there, drive your car around, and have your wife, your girlfriend, or your husband drive your car around, and you just jump out and put out your signs, put out your little balloons, put out your banners that say open house, come check it out. Get one of the inflatable tube mans that are out there floating around in the open houses, because people see that, they're like, whoa, what's going on? Is this a party? Maybe you put a bounce house there for the kids, because that's one thing that could kind of slow down your sale process. Maybe you're doing a great job selling the house, and the parents are really interested, but they have their kid that's screaming, that wants to leave because they want ice cream or who knows what. So have some sort of solution for the kids to make it fun for them, because most people are touring these open houses with their children, and if there's some sort of bounce house or ice cream, I mean, who doesn't want to go there? You might have parents coming to show up there just because their kids want to go to this open house so they can play in the bounce house, or get the maybe you hire a clown to come in and make balloon animals. Maybe you're the clown and you're making balloon animals because you can't afford to get somebody in there, but make sure you have somebody that can pay attention to the parents, not just with the kids. So these are all things you have to factor in, and it falls into our next mistake of not planning your open house and not preparing your open house. So this requires some significant planning, and especially going back to the marketing aspect of this, you need to plan your marketing, because you want to hit people with advertisements for this open house like 2 weeks in advance. Maybe get your signs out there the week before. Maybe you could put them out there 2 weeks before. Again, check your regulations in the area, the ordinances for what they allow as far as signs go. But get out there, get the word out. Go through the neighborhood and go knock on doors and say, hey, look, I want to give you this flyer here for this open house I'm doing. Oh, you have kids? Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, bring them down. We got a bounce house. We got a clown making balloon animals. It's a fun place. It's a good time. We got a DJ. You can look online and see all the crazy stuff people have done for open houses. You just got to be creative. But this all requires planning. If you want people to turn out for your open house, you think Howdy Howard just woke up that morning of his open house and say, hey, I'm going to give away Cadillacs, and just went out there and called up all the radio stations and TV stations, started running ads that day? No, he was probably running these ads from a month in advance, so people couldn't wait for the day to come to potentially get their free Cadillac. They were getting their affairs in order so they could buy one of these houses and get their free Cadillac. So this is all stuff you have to keep in mind. You have to plan these open houses. Our next one we have, not signing in visitors. So at the very least, you want to build some rapport with these visitors, but ultimately, you want to get their information. You want to sign them in, whether that's signing them in for a raffle or signing them in because the seller requires it for everybody that comes into the house for security purposes, or whatever the reason is. If you want to get accurate information, I'd probably give something away. Yeah, maybe it'll cost you $25 to get a gift card or something like that, but that's going to build you all kinds of hype, and this is going to get people to put accurate information, their real information, for you to follow up with them on, because ultimately, again, these are all potentially buyer or seller leads. Maybe they're not buying today, maybe they're not selling tomorrow, but they'll eventually result in some business. Association of Realtors statistics says 5 to 7 years, you're going to get business out of these people because they're probably going to want to move, whether that's just the sale or just helping them buy, or maybe you're lucky and you get both the buy and the sell. So that's why you need to make sure you're getting these people contact information. Put them in your database. They're now part of your farm area, your database, whatever way you want to look at this. They're part of the people that you need to keep marketing to. Don't waste all that money that you spent on doing this open house. And don't get too crazy with this stuff as far as spending money goes. I know I'm talking about all kinds of crazy ideas, but if you're just getting started out and you're on a budget, kind of rein it in and don't do everything quite so crazy. So make sure you prepare, though. That's another mistake. And you want to get this all down and figure this out ahead of time. Don't just think about this Friday, hey, I should probably do an open house this weekend. Yes, you should, but while you're at that open house and no one's showing up because you did not prepare, get there and prepare for next week's open house and the following week's open house, and so on and so forth, so you can kind of help build your audience. So you want to build rapport as well. So you want to sign these people in at the very least. And if you're having a busy open house, maybe you don't have time to build full rapport with everybody. But if it's slow, and chances are it'll probably be slower, then more likely it'll be busy unless you're doing a really great job marketing and promoting this property. But you want to try to build as much rapport with these people as possible. Even if they're not looking to buy today, they might be looking to buy tomorrow or in a few years from now. Which, that's great. It'll take you some time. These are a little bit more long-term type of clients. But you don't want to say, oh, you know what, your money in 2 years is worth nothing to me. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, of course that money's worth something to you. In 2 years, I bet you wish you stayed in contact with them so you get that sale. You could talk to any realtors. If you're a realtor watching this show right now, how many times have you had somebody that is even a friend or a family member that just sold their house, and you're like, hey, dude, what's going on? Why, hello, realtor. I got the little, I don't have my pin on today, but hey, I'm a realtor. What's going on? Why didn't you want to use me? Oh, that's right, I forgot. You know, my bad, man. Next 5 to 7 years, I'll use, and you're just kicking yourself. So don't just neglect these people, because there's a very high likelihood that they will sell something or buy something in the near future, and you don't want to abandon them. So our next thing you want to do, and this maybe falls more so on the people that are more looking to buy today, especially when we're talking about selling the home that we're holding open right now, because that's where we hit the open house lottery. Is like, oh yes, we get a deal on this property that makes those hours that you spent there that day so worth it. You want to wow them. Not only wow them with the property, but wow them with your personality, wow them with your knowledge, wow them with your skills. Make them think that you're the only person. Wow, I've never met anybody like that before, let alone a real estate agent like that before. You know, we've got to use him. And honey, I want to use him when we sell our house. And that's what you want to do. You want to have that wow effect and really wow them when they're there with you. This is you're on stage. This is your moment. This is your chance you have to wow them and get them to want to use you. It's your first opportunity to do that. Hopefully you'll have multiple opportunities to do this after that by following up with them. But you want to wow them right there so that you really leave a good first impression. You don't want to leave a bad first impression because that's really hard to undo. So make sure you're making a good first impression with these people. Our final mistake you do not want to make, not following up with your visitors. And this is the one I probably see more often than anything, the people that have the hardest time with this, because follow-up takes work. It takes systems. It takes having a lot of plans behind this of how you're going to stay in contact with these people. Maybe it's finding out when their birthday or their anniversary, or even if you're just sending out generic holiday cards to them. Something like that even is just enough to follow up with people. That's one impression right there. But remember, you want to keep impressioning on these people over and over, get that frequency built up. So maybe you do some other things. Maybe you call them and check in on them, see how their kid's soccer game was, or something like that, something to follow up, or better yet, if you have people that are going to result in actual business, be like, yes, we are actively looking right now for property, get another appointment with them. Find out when you could show them other houses in the area. If you think of maybe you're buying a car, because people seem to understand this analogy a lot better for some reason, but think of yourself as buying a car. If you go test drive a car, and you don't like that car, you're not going to be saying, oh, you know what, I tried this new car, I don't like new cars, I like my old car that's run down and broken, I'm just going to keep driving that because, that new car, I didn't like it. If they want a new car, if you want a new car, you're going to go look at other cars. Maybe you're turned off completely by that dealer altogether, and you'll go see another dealer. But you know what's great about having one of those little key fobs that allow you to access any property that's listed almost in the MLS? Is you have access to all the inventory. You're like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm not the biggest fan of this kitchen myself. It is a little bit small. This home probably isn't right for you, but I'm actually thinking of another property that I could get you in. And this doesn't have to be your listing. It doesn't have to be yours. There's another property that I'm thinking of. And sometimes you have to pull this information out of them. Be honest with me. What do you think about this property? I want to give some good feedback to my sellers. I could tell you guys aren't interested in it. What about it do you not like? So you're pulling this information about them. They're like, oh yeah, the kitchen is a little small. I like to cook, and so this kitchen really doesn't do it for me. You're like, you know what? I'm a chef myself, amateur chef, and I love to cook. So I can completely understand that. Actually, now that you mention that, I have another property I think you guys might like because it's actually got a much nicer kitchen. It's larger, more spacious, more roomy. I could take you guys out there if you want to go ahead and take a look at it. What time works best for you? Do you want to do today? I get out of here about 5 o'clock, or we could do tomorrow at 1 p.m. Which one works better for you? Get another appointment with them. Follow up with these people. Even if they don't want to set the appointment right there at the house, follow up with them and get this feedback. Take some notes on these people. When you're in there and you have them signing in, flip over that sign-in sheet and start taking down notes for these people. Did not like kitchen, likes to cook. Put down your notes on paper for these people so you do not lose this crucial data, this crucial information, and make sure you follow up. Because that's really the biggest sales secret of all time. I stole that line from somebody. You could go ahead and research that and find out. But the biggest sales secret of all time is follow-up. You need to be following up with people. If you want to ever result in making a sale, you need to be following up with these people. Yes, there's that 1% chance they'll buy the house you're holding open, but for the other 99% of the people that are coming in there, they're not going to buy that house. But they may still buy another house. Again, when they test drive a car, that's what they're doing when they're going to an open house. They're test driving a house. They're testing the house. They're seeing if they like the house, if they like living there. And if they don't, it's not going to turn them off completely. It may, but chances are it's not going to turn them off completely, and they'll still want to buy another house. And that's where you have to let them know, hey, I got another house that fits the bill for what you guys are looking for perfectly. So make sure you follow up with people. That's really the biggest thing. If you take anything away from this week's episode, make sure you follow up with people when you're doing an open house. That's the biggest mistake I see that's being made, not only in open houses, but in any sort of sales, not even real estate related. People don't follow up, and the fortune is in the follow-up. You need to follow up with these people if you do ever want to do business with them. So that's this week's episode of State of Real Estate. Again, this recording is going to be available on our Facebook, on our YouTube, on our Success Center. If you're not subscribed to our Success Center already, go ahead and do that right now. Go to tampaschoolofrealestate.com/success. tampaschoolofrealestate.com/success. It's our Success Center. This is where we have all of these State of Real Estate episodes. We have our Ask the Instructor episodes. We have articles on there. There's all kinds of articles you can read about open houses and everything you need to know. Remember, real estate is a knowledge game. Again, if you're thinking about starting or enhancing your career in real estate, give us a call, visit our website, find out what it is about us that we're here in front of you right now. We do more for our students than any other school that's out there. No one's going to beat us ever for what we do for our students. So check us out. We know you'll be happy. I'm John Carissimo. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to hit like, make sure you hit share. I really appreciate you guys tuning in here. If you have any feedback or comments, we'll be going back through the comments after the show and whatnot and answering some of you guys' questions. So make sure that you put that in there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to catch us next week at Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time, as well as Wednesday, 12 noon Eastern Time. We'll have Ask the Instructor. But next Friday, we'll have another episode of State of Real Estate. I'm John Carissimo, and thanks for tuning in.